नष्टप्रयेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भागवते युक्तं श्लोके भक्तिर्भवतिर्नैष्टिकी। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So we'll resume our discussion from 4th canto, chapter 8, verse 33. Title of the chapter is Dhruva Maharaj leaves home for forest. So a quick recap in the chapter begins with Maitreya giving a lineage of adharma, and then we see Suruchi's chastisement of Dhruva. And after that, Dhruva goes to Suniti, and Suniti directs Dhruva to worship the Lord. So, taking shelter of the instructions of his mother, Dhruva heads to the north, heads to the forest, and is intercepted by Narad Muni. So, I'm recording on the laptop. So, Narad Muni, when he meets Dhruva, then first he pacifies him like a child. That no need to be angry, it's okay, go back home, everything will be fine. And when Dhruv does not listen to his instructions, then he begins to speak philosophically. And we were at that section when Narad Muni is giving philosophical instructions to so we are at the point where he's giving philosophical instructions to Dhruva, which we'll see that Dhruva is not fully amenable to it. So, resuming verse 33. Yasya yaddeva vihitam satena sukha dukkhaya atmanam toshayan dehi tamsa param racchati. One should try to keep himself satisfied in any condition of life, whether distress or happiness, which is offered by the supreme will. A person who endures in this way is able to cross over the darkness of nations very easily. So Narad Muni is saying that just be satisfied with your own plight, and that will deliver to you the highest results. Right? He says, tamasa param racchati, which is transcending the darkness of ignorance. Tamasa param. Param means it transcends tamasa, the darkness of ignorance. So Narad Muni is making the point that what Dhruv is doing, which is fighting against his destiny, will actually will ensnare him more in tamasa. Right? So we are saying that if you are satisfied, then tamasa param. If you are not satisfied, tamasa ghoram. So Narad Muni is essentially telling Dhruva that the path that you're taking in, which is trying to fight your destiny, will ensnare you into the deepest ignorance. Very similar to the instruction that Krishna gives Arjuna right at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, right? He says, Matra sparshas tu konteya, sukha dukha shitosana. So that one who is equal in dukham and sukham, sam dukham, sukham dhiram. So Narad is giving the same instruction to Dhruva, right? So be equipoised. Prabhupada says that now Narad Muni is saying that instead of being attached to the circumstantial happiness and distress resulting from pious or impious activities, if we want to get out of the clutches of these nations, then whatever position we are put in by the will of the Lord, we should accept. Thus, we simply surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We shall get out of the clutches of material existence. Next verse. Gunadikan mudam lipsa anukrosham gunadama maitram samanadanivichen nataped abhibhuyate. Every man should act like this. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate towards him. And when he meets someone equal to himself, he should make friendship with him. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. So previous verse, Narad Muni had glorified equanimity. Right? Just accept your adversities with tranquility. Now he's giving the how-to part of it. That how to be situated in that equanimity. How can one stay neutral in all circumstances? So three instructions in this verse. So Narad Muni says that you give up envy, pride, and enmity. So one has envy towards a superior, one has pride towards an inferior, and one has enmity towards a peer. Right? So when somebody is better situated, one becomes envious of the person. If one is lesser situated, one becomes proud. And with a peer, one develops competitiveness that he may take or I may take. So one develops enmity. So Narad is actually going one step beyond that. He's saying, actually cultivate the opposite emotion. So instead of envy, he says that mudam, that you be pleased to meet a superior. Right? So instead of being envious, be pleased to meet a superior, one who is gunadikat, one who is greater to you. Guna means in any way, any quality that he has that is greater to you. Be mudam, be pleased. Then instead of pride towards an inferior, anukrosham, you feel compassionate towards one whose guna adamat, who's lesser to you in any way. And instead of feeling enmity and anger, maitram, you develop friendship towards samanad, towards those who are your peers. And what Narad is promising to Dhruva, that if you do these three things, na taper abhi bhuyate, that you will not be affected by any kinds of tribulations. So from this, Narad is indicating that the root cause of suffering is one's own divisive mentality towards others. Right? So uh, if you'll notice that these instructions are essentially promoting a change in one's perception, not a change in the situation. And the reason is that the nature of the material world is that this situation will always be there. There will be always somebody who is superior to you. There will always be somebody who is competing. And there is always somebody who is inferior to you. The number of the people in these three buckets might change, but there'll always be somebody. So Narad is saying that this situation cannot change. So you change what you have control on, which is how you deal with that situation. But the result is as good as if the situation has changed. Right? So nata pe abhi bhuyate. So the opposite of this is developing a divisive mentality. And divisive mentality is the cause of taper. So in Dhruva's case, Narad is saying that Suruchi is your superior. Uttama is your peer. So you accept, give up your envy towards Suruchi. You give up your anger towards Uttama. So instead of being instead of being angry or envious, you be happy and friendly. And then you go back home. So even though excuse me, so even though Suruchi may still be the same, Uttama may still be the same, but the situation will not be the same. So powerful instructions, even by, of course, Dhruva rejects them, but nevertheless powerful instructions. Right? It's the intent that is essentially describing the result. It's like Maharaj Rantidev, right? He's praying to Krishna that may I reside in the heart of all the jivas, and on behalf of them, may I suffer. And the Lord, of course, did not fulfill his prayers, but nevertheless, he was very pleased by the compassion that he was showing. So Narad is saying that with this intention, when you approach the situation, then the situation might not change, but how it affects you will definitely change. So these verses from 24 to 34 are considered to be testing verses. Like Narad is testing Dhruva. It does not mean that they are incorrect. It does not mean that they are whimsically given by Narad. Actually, they are some of the highest instructions where Narad is speaking from the scriptures, even though Dhruva will reject them. We will see that when Dhruva rejects them, then Narad is actually pleased by the rejection. And this is one of the glories of Bhakti. Because when Dhruva is rejecting these instructions, he's saying, you tell me how to worship Lord Vishnu. So Narad still goes ahead and instructs him. Right? Otherwise, the relationship between a disciple and a guru is based on the submissiveness of a disciple. This pastime of Dhruva Maharaj with Narad Muni, it is often quoted, especially by spiritual masters, to bring forth the practical aspect of the relationship. That when a disciple is asked to surrender to the Guru, Srila Prabhupada would say that surrender means that you surrender with your intelligence. It does not mean that you surrender your intelligence. Right? There's a difference between the two. Surrendering your intelligence means that you simply follow without any thought whatever Guru says. You simply do that. It's okay. It's good, but not the highest. Highest form is you understand the instruction, understand the core behind the instruction, and then follow. Right? And Srila Prabhupada appreciated that aspect of disciples who would go beyond the instruction, who would sometimes change the instruction, but they maintain the essence of the desires of the spiritual master. We see this happening over here, that Dhruva is taking the instructions of the spiritual master, and he's rejecting it not because he's rejecting the spiritual master, but he's rejecting his own ability to follow those instructions. And he's still sincerely presenting his desires to follow the instructions of the Guru. So it's not that Narad Muni said that, Dhruva said, okay, thank you very much. And in his mind, he thinks that, Narad is out there and he doesn't really know what I'm speaking, and I'll go and find some other Guru. He doesn't think like that. But he presents his concerns to Narad Muni in a transparent way. And he says, now give me instructions, right? So that's the nature of a practical relationship between a Guru and a disciple. That a disciple is supposed to question the Guru, to understand the intent of the Guru, to clarify how best he can serve the Guru. And then when he is fully committed to that, then he executes without any hesitation, as we will see in the case of Dhruva Maharaj. Okay, so let's see now what Dhruva will say. Verse 35. Dhruva vacha soyam shamo bhagvata sukha dukha hatatmana darshita kripaya pumsham durdarshosmad vidayastuya. Dhruva Maharaj said, my dear Lord Naradji, for a person whose heart is disturbed by the material conditions of happiness and distress, whatever you have so kindly explained for attainment of peace of mind is certainly a very good instruction. But as far as I am concerned, I am covered with ignorance. And this kind of philosophy does not touch my heart. So now Dhruva is talking about his own inability, right? So you see that he's glorifying the instructions of Narad Muni. He's not finding fault in the instructions. He is expressing the inability of himself to follow the instructions, right? So he addresses Narad Muni as Bhagavat, right? So he's saying that you're as good as the Lord. So whatever you're saying is absolute. He says, yeah. Then he says, Durdasha. For me, it is difficult to even perceive. Durdasha means, even Darsha means to see. Durdasha means that I can't even see what you're saying. I can't even comprehend what you're saying. Asmat Vidaya. People like me. So people who are like me. So what Narad Muni has told him that Shama, that the importance of the peacefulness of mind for persons who are Sukha Dukha Hatatmana, for persons who are afflicted by happiness and distress, right? So this is what he has understood, that my dear Narad Muni, you're telling me that this is important, right? So he says, Kripya Darshita. Undoubtedly, this is a sign of your mercy on me, that you are giving me this instruction, which I can't really understand. I'm just echoing it back to you, that you seem to be saying to me that Sukha Dukha Hatatmana, that in happiness or distress, I should maintain equanimity. No doubt it is a sign of your mercy on me, but I reject it. And Prabhupada explains why. So it's an extrapolation. And again, acharyas do this to unfold a verse. So Prabhupada says, Dhruva is saying that as far as I'm concerned, I'm covered by ignorance. And this kind of philosophy does not touch my heart. Vishwanath Chakravarti comments that Dhruva is saying that you have given mercy to an unqualified person like me. However, since I have the nature of a Kshatriya, my heart has been pierced and is like a broken pot. So it cannot hold your wisdom and instructions. Dhruva will actually use this analogy later on. Vishwanath Chakravarti comments upon it in an earlier verse. But he's saying that whatever instructions you're giving me, it cannot touch my heart because of two reasons. I'm a Kshatriya by nature and I've been insulted. So it's like there is a fire burning and there is oil poured over it. The fire is burning even more brighter. So when Narad is giving the perfect instructions to test and build the determination of Dhruva, this principle that is emerging from this conversation is important for preaching, that one should instruct based on the ability of the recipient to receive the instruction. So when a person is suffering, it is not the best time to go to the person and say that you are responsible for your suffering. Right? It's not a good way to develop empathy for the person. Or if a person has lost a dear one, it's not a good time to go to the person and say that death is inevitable. Everybody dies. You will also die. I'll also die. So no need to cry. All these are truths. Right? They're scriptural truths, but contextually they are inappropriate. And as an expert preacher, we will see that Narad Muni will preach according to the circumstances. That is Narad Muni's great expertise. Right? We see that when he preaches to Mrigarari, he says that you fully kill the animals. When he preaches to Dhruva, he is going to preach that I will tell you how to get revenge from Suruchi. When he preaches to King Prachinabhari, he says that I will help you get out of this material distress that you are in. But when he goes to Srila Vyasadeva, he says that you have to speak about pure devotional service. He preaches differently to different people, but ultimately he guides them towards the same path. Prabhupada in the purport says that Dhruva did not accept the instructions given by the great sage Narad because he thought himself unfit for such instruction, which prohibited all material desires. It is not a fact, however, that those who have material desires are prohibited from worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is an essential instruction from the life of Dhruva. He frankly admitted that his heart was full of material desires. He was very much afraid very much affected by the cruel words of his stepmother. Whereas those who are spiritually advanced do not care about anyone's condemnation or adoration. Verse 36. Athapi pe vinitasya kshatram ghoram upeyushaha suruchya dhruvacho bane na bhinne shrayate hridi. My dear Lord, I am very impudent for not accepting your instructions. But this is not my fault. It is due to having been born in a Kshatriya family. My stepmother Suruchi has pierced my heart with her harsh words. Therefore, your valuable instructions do not stand in my heart. So you can see Dhruva's anger. He is calling his mother Suruchi. She has the position of his mother. She is stepmother, but she has the position as of his mother. And he is saying, Suruchya Durvache Banir. That woman Suruchi, the arrows of her word has pierced my heart. And then he says, I am Ghoram Kshatram, that I am intolerant. Ghoram means one who is capable of performing extreme activities. So he says, I am intolerant, and that makes me avinitasya. So vinit means submissive. Avinitasya is that makes me not submissive. So Dhruva is saying that the nature of the Kshatriya is to force others to submit to them. And then he uses the metaphors that Vishwanath Chakravarti used in the previous, that he says that my heart is like a pot, and the arrows of the insults spoken by Suruchi are like arrows. So my heart is now like a leaky vessel. So just like a leaky vessel cannot hold water, the nectar of your instructions cannot be held in my heart, but they will simply be leaked. He says, Shrayate Hridi, that they will not stay in my heart because it is bhinna, it is pierced. Vishwanath Chakravarti says that actually behind this apparent self-deprecation is also a lot of pride in Dhruva. So he says that Dhruva is saying behind these words that let the weak, cowardly Brahmanas drink the nectar of your instructions on peacefulness. Since I am Kshatriya prince with fierce bravery, I cannot even glance at your instructions. So this is Dhruva's mood right now. Ultimately, it is glorified because of the results. So sometimes harsh speech also has a positive effect, right? We see in the first canto, chapter 13, Vidur speaks very, very harshly to Dhritarashtra. Right? He says like you're living like Bhima's dog. And it's a harsh words to speak to your elder brother. But it results in Dhritarashtra becoming renounced. Then we see Duryodhana speaking very harshly to Vidur. Right? He uses almost the same words to Vidur. Many years earlier on, when Vidur was commenting, advising against Duryodhana, Duryodhana says, this person is living like a dog. You drive him out of the house, and with nothing but his own breath. And Vidur says, thank you very much. He leaves his bow at the door, and then he heads out, and he has the good fortune to meet Udhav and Maitreya and have this wonderful conversation and go back to Godhead. So Suruchi is not really glorified, just like Duryodhana is not glorified for the harsh speech, because the intention is not pure. Vidur is glorified for his harsh speech to Dhritarashtra because the intentions were pure in that case. Srila Prabhupada has an interesting purport. He is saying that from this we can understand that one acquires a varna not by birth but by training. So he says that Prabhupada kind of reflects on the state of the society at that time when he was writing this purport. This was in the 70s when the Vietnam War was going on, and the draft was in place. So people had to compulsorily enroll and fight in the war. And then Prabhupada says that these boys are Shudras and they're being asked to become Kshatriyas. So you cannot forcibly make a Shudra a Kshatriya, right? It's not going to happen. But then he says that I'm making them Brahmanas. So this process of Krishna consciousness is bona fide. That he said that the boys do not have the Kshatriya spirit does not mean that they are not trained in Brahmanical qualities. They are, as soon as they enter into Krishna conscious movement, being started in America, they are trained and meet the Brahmanical qualifications, even though they are fallen to the lowest level as Shudras. In other words, the Krishna consciousness movement is open for everyone. People in general can attain the Brahmanical qualification. This is the greatest need at the present moment. For now, there are actually no Brahmanas or Kshatriyas, but only Vaishyas, and for the most part, Shudras. The classification of society into Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras is very scientific. In the human social body, the Brahmanas are considered to be the head, the Kshatriyas the arms, the Vaishyas the belly, and the Shudras the legs. At the present moment, the body has legs and belly, but there are no arms or head, and therefore the society is topsy-turvy. It is necessary to establish the Brahmanical qualifications in order to raise the fallen human society to the highest standard of spiritual consciousness. So Prabhupada uses this example because Dhruva is presenting himself as a Kshatriya and Narad makes him a Brahman. Actually, at this point, Dhruva is presenting himself more as a Shudra, even though he's claiming he's a Kshatriya, but he's presenting himself as a Shudra. Narad Muni says, no matter. I will take you and make you a Brahman. And that is what Srila Prabhupada says is this Krishna consciousness movement doing to American society. Okay, let's move on to the next verse, 37. Padam tri bhuvano kritashna, Padam ti bhuvano kritashtam jigisho sadhu vartamame bruyasmat pitrabhi brahman annerapyanadhishtitam. O learned Brahman, I want to occupy a position more exalted than any yet achieved within the three worlds by anyone, even my father and my grandfather. If you will oblige, kindly advise me of an honest path to follow by which I can achieve the goal of my life. So when Dhruva says what he says in the previous verses, then Narad Muni may ask then, what is it that you actually want to do? So Dhruva responds to that implicit question saying that my desire, Jigisho, my desire is Tribhuvan Utkrishna, is to have a position that is highest in the Tribhuvan. Right? The Brahman is divided into three. Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, right? Upper, lower, and middle. And Utkrishtam means better than. So it should be better than anyone in this three worlds. Now, he further specifies. He says that I want a position that has not been attained by any of my forefathers. Right? He says, Asmat Pitrabhi. So his forefathers are Manu or Lord Brahma. Or he says, Anyarapi Anadhishtam, or anybody else. So anybody else means anyone else who has been created by Brahma. Anyarapi Anadhishtam. So basically what he's saying that I want a position that no one has occupied in this three worlds. So in one way, this looks like it's like the bombastic demands of an immature and a hurt and an angry 5-year-old, right? So the 5-year-old is angry and he's saying that I want to be the biggest, baddest person in this 3 worlds. I want to be bigger than my father. I want to beat up my grandfather, right? So it can be construed as that. But the difference is that whatever Dhruva is saying, there are 2 things that are making it worthy of consideration. That one is, he is not demanding that position, right? He is not saying to Narad, give me this position. What he is asking Narad is, give me the process by which I can occupy that position. That's a sign of maturity, right? An immature person would say that, make me the richest person in the world. A mature person will say, tell me how I can become rich. So Dhruva, his demands may be extreme, but his request is reasonable. His demands may be immature, but his approach is mature, right? He's saying that give me a process. Then second thing is that he wants to follow a process given by Narad Muni, right? So he's not saying that, okay, Narad, you go now. I will follow some process by which I will become greater than Brahma. He knows that the value of inquiring from a bona fide authority. And Prabhupada says that one particular point mentioned here is that Dhruva wanted to occupy an exalted position, not by hook or crook, but by honest means. This indicates that if Krishna offered him such a position, he would accept it. That's the nature of a devotee. He may desire material gain, but he accepts it only if Krishna offers it. Dhruva Maharaj was sorry to refuse the instructions of Narad Muni. Therefore, he requested him to be merciful to him by showing a path which would fulfill his mind's desires. Superficially, we see that Dhruva is similar to Hiranyakashipu. Right? This is what Hiranyakashipu wanted. He wanted to be the most powerful person in the universe. All of Hiranyakashipu's demands were material. I want this, I want that. He was completely material, very, very ambitious. Same thing with Dhruva. Very, very ambitious with material demands. But there is some differences. Now, both Dhruva and Hiranyakashipu, they went and inquired from a bona fide source. So Hiranyakashipu went to his guru, Shukracharya. Dhruva went to his guru, Narad Muni. But the difference is that Dhruva did not want to harm anybody else. So he's not saying that, let me be the most powerful person so I can beat up Suruchi. Or let me be the most powerful person so that I can kick out Uttam and Uttanpad and sit on their throne. Right? That is not his desire. Narad Muni would never have responded to him. Right? So he's ambitious. He's asking for it, for something. But Hiranyakashipu, his desire was that may I be the most powerful so that I can kill Lord Vishnu. That is the difference between the two of them. Okay, so quick summation, and after that we'll pause for discussion. That what the Acharyas say that this set of 10 verses, reading them would tend to bewilder the person because they seem to be very, very negative. Like Narad Muni is first criticizing Dhruva. Don't do this, give it up. Dhruva is then criticizing Narad Muni. I don't want to do this. But when we see how the instruction plays out, then we see that behind each criticism is a glorification. Right? So let's look at it quickly. In verse 28, Narad Muni said that you are just a child. You cannot give up all this. You're just a child. The encouragement is that one should take up bhakti as soon as possible. Right? Don't wait to become an adult. As soon as possible, take up bhakti. In verse 29, Narad Muni says that Dhruva, you should know that you yourself are the cause of dishonor. And the encouragement that is over here is, by the performance of bhakti, one transcends karma and jnana. Right? So this whole notion of honor and dishonor and suffering from it, that is automatically achieved through the process of bhakti. Verse 30, Narad Muni says this process that you are trying to follow is very difficult. But then we see that Dhruva actually succeeds. So what is the implicit encouragement here? That even a small child can take to bhakti and succeed in it. In verse 31, Narad Muni says that others more qualified than you have taken to this process, tried and failed. The encouragement over here is that with descending mercy, anyone can succeed. Then in verse 32, Narad Muni says that you better wait for a more opportune time. This is not the right time for you. And the encouragement here is that any time is an opportune time for bhakti. So whether you're young or old, any time is an opportune time for bhakti. Then in verse 33, Narad Muni says that equanimity is the key to knowledge, liberation, while agitation will keep you in nations. And the implicit encouragement over here is one should actually be dissatisfied with the state of material affairs. When one has that dissatisfaction, that is the impetus to take to spirituality. So equanimity, if it is incorrectly applied, one says, well, everybody is suffering. Everybody takes birth and dies. We often get this thing that people say everybody is suffering, everybody becomes sick, everybody dies. But then a few persons say that why? Is there a way for me to get out of the cycle of birth and death? So that kind of dissatisfaction is important to make advancements in spirituality. In verse 34, Narad Muni says that give up your envy to the superior or competition to a peer, or give up your pride to one who is below you. And the implicit encouragement is that all these are automatically bestowed by bhakti. And not only does it give you that, it gives you happiness also. So giving up these dualities will put a person in a state of neutrality. But by the practice of bhakti, you not only get that neutrality, you go beyond that and get actual happiness. So these are the 7 discouragements by Narad Muni that are actually glorifications of bhakti. And then we see that there are 3 reasons given by Dhruva, which are again apparently discouragements, but also ultimately glorification. So Dhruva in verse 35 says that I'm disturbed by material desires. And the glorification is bhakti purifies everything. Even if you're disturbed with material desires, bhakti will purify. We'll see that in the case of Dhruva. Then in 36, Dhruva says that I'm a Kshatriya by nature. I'm passionate. And the glorification is Swabhav is not a restriction. Whether you're a Shudra or a Brahman or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya or even below a Shudra, you can still practice bhakti. And then in verse 37, Dhruva says, I have too many material ambitions. And the glorification there is that everyone can benefit from bhakti. Akama sarva kamopi. So even if a person has no desire, full of desires, moksha kamadardis, looking for liberation, everybody desires from, everybody benefits from bhakti. So these are the 10 encouragements that are emerging from this wonderful conversation between Narad Muni and Dhruva. Externally, it looks like both of them are condemning each other. Narad Muni is discouraging Dhruva, saying that you're just a small child, not the right time for you, don't be envious, and you will not succeed, you're sure to fail. Dhruva is saying your instructions are not taking place in my heart, and I'm Ghoram Kshatriyam. So it sounds like it's a it's sounds like it's bickering between two people. But based on the results of the pastime, we see that all these are actually presented as glorifications. It's like when we saw the prayers to Lord Vishnu by the different participants in the yajna of Prajapati Daksha, then Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that implicit in them is criticism. And then one might say, why is there criticism being presented when Lord Vishnu is being glorified? And the reason is that actually that criticism is glorification of bhakti. So just delving deeper into the intents of the pastime. Okay, so let me pause here and see if there is any comments.
Prabhu, I had a question. You said in one instance where the talk was about how he says he's a Kshatriya, and you said he's actually presenting himself as a Shudra, not even a Kshatriya. Could you speak a little bit about it?
So he's acting that way, right? So he's saying I'm a Kshatriya. The quality of a Shudra is to claim that you are unable to change your situation. That's the essential quality of a Shudra. That whether I am in a good or a bad situation, if it is good, fine. If it is bad, then I will just lament about the situation. There's nothing that I will do to change it, right? Second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjun that why are you acting like a Shudra? Why are you lamenting like that? Dhruva is presenting him like himself, even though he's saying he's a Kshatriya, but he's saying I'm unable to change. That's the Shudra quality. But the redeeming quality is that with all his limitations, he is intent on taking shelter of Narad. Prabhupada said these two qualities are the redeeming qualities. That he wants to take shelter of Narad Muni, and he is willing to follow the path that is given to him, which is what sets him apart. So to a great extent, these are transient qualities. That in a conversation, Dhruva at this point is displaying these qualities, but later on we see that with conviction he is acting like a Brahmana. He will begin to with conviction follow the instructions of the spiritual master, which is a Brahmanical quality.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I'm just thinking, like, if Dhruva is asking for a position greater than his father and even greater than his grandfather, and as a position as well, Brahma is a position. Okay, of course, he's a pure devotee, but Dhruva, at the end of the day, would be a pure devotee. And I'm just thinking aloud that getting a position of a pure devotee is even greater than the position of Brahma as a post. I'm not talking about the person Brahma, but as a position. Is that right?
You're right. I think eventually that's what happens. That's how the Lord gives him a position that is greater than Brahma. It's the position of a devotee, because essentially Dhruva gets a spiritual post. That answers your question, Prabhu?
Yeah. I was just thinking like how Krishna will compensate him for that. Yeah, I was just thinking out loud.
Yeah, he does. He gives him a spiritual position, which is Brahma is the highest material position. So what else can Krishna give? He can't create another Brahma. So he gives him a position that is a spiritual position. At the end of Brahma's day, Dhruva Loka is not destroyed. It stays there. When Brahma dies, Dhruva Loka still stays there. Right? So his position is obviously more exalted.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, you mentioned one important preaching principle in this, how Narada instructs different personalities differently. So one thing observe is all these are one-on-one interactions and exchanges, and there these different nuances can be addressed differently with different personalities. So as in a preaching, like in an institution like ISKCON, and where sometimes, most of the time, there is addressing larger groups. So if you can shed some light on how to adapt this principle and how much, like, of course, we stick to the scriptures and purports of Prabhupada, but still, some questions may come and there is a larger group. But so sometimes we hear seniors say, like, we'll address this one-on-one. But in general, is there a, for addressing a larger group, some thoughts on that?
Thank you, Venugopal Prabhu. It's a very good point, especially because I can relate to it today. Because today morning I was actually in Gita Nagari, and I was giving the Bhagavatam class over there, and it was a varied group. There were people over there who are practicing, mature devotees, and there was one person there who basically was, just literally speaking, very, very new. And I made this point that a person who thinks that Krishna consciousness is only about Krishna is an illusion. And the point I was making was that Krishna consciousness is really about devotees. A person who thinks just about him and Krishna, it's covered form of illusion. And he was quite surprised by it. I would say almost he was disturbed by it. He says, well, everything that I've been hearing so far, that when you chant the name, Krishna is with you, and the purpose of your life is to go back to Krishna. And I was actually feeling exactly the same that you were feeling, that how do we temper the message? So this was a morning Bhagavatam class, which is almost like an Ishtagoshti, speaking to devotees, but it was a mixed crowd, nevertheless. And I was actually thinking about it myself on my way back, that what is it that you do in that situation? I know that when giving classes, more experienced devotees, they try to ascertain the level of the group in general, and that they try to give the class according to the lower common denominator. So the advantage of that is that those who already know, they are accepting it, they're relishing it. It's basically reinforcing what they know, but they're not speaking subjects that might bewilder those who are not that experienced in the various facts of Krishna consciousness. So that is one thing. I know when I started giving Sunday lectures at the temple, one of the trainings that I received was this, that try and speak according to the lower common denominator, because they are essentially the people that you're reaching out to. The other thing is that if you have to keep the interest of those who are more advanced engaged, then even when you speak facts that are a little bit more advanced, it's always good to then decompose them into more digestible bits for others. Like you may have also heard the classes that Ropad Maharaj gave on the Tantakaranya Yatra, right? So there also, right at the beginning, he says, this is a mixed crowd here. There are some people over here who have read Ramayana for a very long time, and there are some people here who are like, who's Ram, who's Ravan? So there's a whole spectrum of people. And then you see him do these things, that he speaks something that is more advanced, and then he says, for the newcomers, let me explain it in this way. There is speaking mostly historical facts, so it's easy to decompose there. Sometimes, like what I spoke in retrospect was probably not the best thing for me to say, but philosophical facts that sometimes are a little bit, like you start speaking about Vipalamba Bhav and say that that is higher than Sambhog, or if you start speaking about the different rasas, it will be difficult for you to decompose them also. So understanding the level of the audience, and trying to gear yourself more towards the general audience, as opposed to the lower end of the audience. I mean, lower is a little bit, I can't find a better word to describe it, but
Yes.
basically devotees who are starting off trying to approach it. That probably is a safer route, and the more advanced devotees will also appreciate the reinforcement of the points.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. If not, we'll continue with verse 38. Nunam bhavan bhagavato yonga pramesthinaha vitudanna tatevinam hitaya jagatorkvat. My dear Lord, you are a worthy son of Lord Brahma, and you travel playing your musical instrument, the veena, for the welfare of the entire universe. You are like the sun, which rotates in the universe for the benefit of all living beings. So Narad may now ask Dhruva that you have all these high aspirations. What makes you think that I can help you? You want to become greater than Brahma. How do you think that I can help you? So Dhruva responds, he says that Angaja Pramesthena, that Pramesthena is Brahma. Angaja is that you're born from the body of Brahma. So actually Narad is born from the deliberation of Brahma, but the same, very close, that is born from Brahma. So Angajana also means that you're born from the lap of the Lord. So Dhruva is indicating that you're an incarnation of the Lord. Narad Muni is. He's an empowered incarnation of the Lord. So he's saying, if anybody can help me, you can help me. That you are an incarnation of the Lord. You are born from Brahma himself. So you can help me. So Narad might say that I'm already trying to help you. I gave you advice and you have rejected it. Now you're saying that you help me? That does not sound reasonable. So Dhruva says, Vinam hitaya jagato. So you play the veena for the benefit of everyone. He said, you are like Arkavat. You travel everywhere like the sun. So just like the sun, it gives heat and light impartially to everyone, the pious and the impious, the qualified and the not so qualified. So Dhruva is saying, it's true. I rejected your instructions because I'm not qualified. But you're like the sun that will even give light to those that are not qualified. So you have the ability and you have the compassion. Therefore, you should be able to help me. Similar analogy is used in the first canto by actually Srila Vyasadeva. Right? When Vyasadeva begins to glorify Narad Muni, this is in the first canto, 5th chapter, he says that your goodness is like the sun, and that you travel everywhere in the three worlds, and you can penetrate the internal regions of the heart. So the quality of compassion towards everybody. Srila Vyasadeva is glorifying that in Narad Muni. Dhruva Maharaj is glorifying that in same quality in Narad Muni. And Prabhupada purport, he talks about the same quality. The example of the sun is very significant. The sun is so kind that he distributes his sunshine to everywhere without consideration. Dhruva Maharaj requests Narad Muni to be merciful to him. So Dhruva clearly understands the position of Narad Muni. Acharyas say that because Narad Muni, this is not the first time that Dhruva met Narad Muni. Narad Muni used to come to the court of Maharaj Uttanpad, and Dhruva would hear, oh, that sage is come, he carries a veena, he's compassionate, he sings, he's powerful, he's born out of Brahma. So Dhruva, because of his exalted birth, that he was the son of the emperor, and he had prior indirect association with Narad Muni, but he was aware of the potency of Narad Muni. So he's considered as a disciple of Narad because he inquired from him, he received guidance and followed his instructions. Right? So these are the essence of a guru-disciple relationship. So it's not that Narad Muni sat Dhruva down and did the initiation yagya and then gave him like Kantimala and said, now your name is Dhruva Maharaj or anything like that. But still, Narad Muni is considered to be the guru and Dhruva is considered to be the disciple because of these three things. That Dhruva inquired, Narad Muni instructed, and Dhruva followed. That is the essence of the guru-disciple relationship. Verse 39. Maitre vacha ityudharatam akanya bhagwan naradastada prita pratyahatam balam sadvakyam anukampaya. The sage Maitreya continued, the great personality Narad Muni, upon hearing the words of Dhruva Maharaj, became very compassionate towards him. And in order to show him his causeless mercy, he gave him the following expert advice. So the qualities of Narad Muni as the spiritual master are glorified over here. So the essential quality is anukampaya. Anukampaya means he is merciful. And he responds to Dhruva's inquiry by sadvakyam. Sadvakyam means that what he is speaking is according to the sad, scriptures, or the absolute truth. And the quality of evaluating the determination of the prospective disciple. So Narad Muni means compassion is evoked by the determination of Dhruva. That he is determined but he's inquiring submissively. And he wants to follow the process. So, anukampaya, the natural quality of mercy in a spiritual master, was evoked. And sadvakyam. And now he speaks the absolute truth towards him. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see this pastime of Maharaj Prataparudra. He is very, very anxious to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is constantly saying no. He's a king, he is Vishayi, involved in material affairs. Mahaprabhu says, I will fall down if I meet with him. So I will not meet with him. And Prataparudra, through different agents, is saying, Mahaprabhu is getting so upset, saying that if you insist, I'm going to leave Puri. So then his associates became scared, they stopped saying. But Maharaj Prataparudra was so determined to somehow meet Mahaprabhu. So he goes to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and he says that if my being the king is an obstacle to my meeting with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then I will give up my role as a king. I will become a beggar, and that way I will be able to meet Mahaprabhu. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya at that time comments that I don't know how, but I know for certain that you will meet Mahaprabhu, because you're displaying this determination to meet him. And eventually, yes, Maharaj Prataparudra does meet Mahaprabhu. Similarly, we see Narad Muni here, he is responding to the quality of determination in Dhruva. So actually, the word Dhruva means determination, right? We see in Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, Krishna says, Jatasya dhruvam mrityu, dhruvam janmam mritasya cha. Right? Jatasya dhruvam mrityu. That one who has taken birth is sure to die. And dhruvam mritasya janasya cha. One who dies is sure to take birth again. So this quality of determination is one that evokes the mercy in Narad Muni. Causeless mercy, Prabhupada says. That even though it is causeless, it is causeless in the sense that the mercy, there is nothing in the quality that the disciple can do to justify the mercy of the Guru. That's why it's called causeless. It's like you buy a lottery ticket for $1 and win $1 million. So you cannot say that my investment was $1. So that's what got me $1 million. No, it's just your luck that got you. So you offer a little bit, you still have to spend $1. If you don't spend $1, you won't, or you don't stand a chance to win. But the winning is disproportionately large to what you invest. So that's the causeless mercy that Prabhupada talks about. So Prabhupada says that Dhruv Maharaj, however, was a child, and so his demand was also that of a playful child. Still, the great sage became compassionate towards him, and for his welfare, he spoke the following verses. Now Narad Muni will start giving instructions to Dhruva. Verse 40. Narad Dvacha Janya Bilahitaha Pantha Savai Nihe Shrayasyate Bhagwan Vasudevastam Bhajatam Pravanatmana. The great sage Narad told Dhruva Maharaj, the instruction given by your mother Suniti is to follow the path of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is just suitable for you. You should therefore completely absorb yourself in the devotional service of the Lord. So this is verse 40. In verse 30, Narad Muni had said that Samai Pumsha Duradya Matumama. That he said this instruction that is given to you by your mother is very difficult to follow. Give it up. Don't worry about following it. Now he's saying the opposite. that the instruction given by your mother is just suitable. You follow it absolutely. He says, Jananya Abhita Pantha. Jananya means the mother. Abhita Pantha, that she has given you that path that is for your ultimate benefits. Savai Nihashrayasya. Certainly, that should be the goal of your life. The difference between these two is that Dhruva has been tested and he has passed the test. So both the points made by Narad Muni are correct. So for a person who is fickle, for a person who is not determined, the path given by Suniti is difficult to follow. But a person who has displayed his determination, that is just the right path. So one might wonder over here that if Narad Muni is all powerful, then why doesn't he simply bestow bhakti on Dhruva? Why is he making a poor 5-year-old boy work so hard for it? He has already tested him, he has accepted him, that his determination is there, and then Narad Muni should say that I bestow bhakti on you. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the glory is not in becoming a devotee. The glory is in following the process of devotional service. So the glorification is of the process over the product. So it is not that an aspiring devotee is saying that I will enter the spiritual world and I will become a personal associate of Krishna and I will play on the shoulder of Krishna. That's not the aspiration of a devotee. The aspiration of a devotee is that may I serve the Lord and his devotees. Everything else is secondary. All that will or may happen, right? They will enter the spiritual world, they will associate with Krishna, but it says the goal of bhakti is bhakti. The goal of bhakti is not entering into the spiritual world. So Narad Muni is essentially giving him the process and the goal at the same time. So he is actually bestowing upon him the goal by giving him the process, because there is no difference between the two. When he's giving him the process, he is also giving him the goal. Second reason is that this is how Dhruva is going to get glorified. And if Narad Muni said, okay, now you're a pure devotee, firstly, he would not, but let's assume he would say, then where is the glory of Dhruva? So the glory of Dhruva is in doing whatever he does, and then he becomes an object of an exemplary object. Everybody wants to have a son like Dhruva Maharaj. The Prabhupada said that Narad Muni is referred to here as Bhagwan because he can bless any person just as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was very pleased with Dhruva Maharaj and he could have at once personally given whatever he wanted. But it is not the duty of the spiritual master. His duty is to engage the disciple in proper devotional service as prescribed in the Shastras. Krishna was similarly present before Arjuna, and even though he could have given him all the facilities for victory over the opposing party without a fight, he did not do so. Instead, he asked Arjuna to fight. In the same way, Narad Muni asked Dhruva Maharaj to undergo devotional service in order to achieve the desired result. Srila Prabhupada will comment about his spiritual master. He said, my Guru Maharaj is so powerful that he could have made the entire world Vaishnava. And then once a disciple asked him, why didn't he? And then he said, because he wanted to give me some service. So, nature of Vaishnavas, they want to glorify other Vaishnavas. Okay, so we go to verse 41. Dharmat kama mokshakhyam Ya ichek shreha atmanaha ekam hayeva hares tatra karanam pad sevanam. Any person who desires the fruits of the four principles, religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and at the end liberation, should engage himself in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For worship of his lotus field yields the fulfillment of all these. So Narad Muni is saying that Nihashrayasya, that you worship Krishna and you will get the ultimate goal of life. And Dhruva says, I'm not really interested in all this. I am interested in position greater than Brahma. So Narad Muni says, you will get that also. Right? So he's saying that this process of bhakti will fulfill all your material desires. Just worship Vasudeva. Dhruva made object that why should I worship Vasudeva? So Narad Muni says that because he is capable of fulfilling all your desires. So this verse actually is almost synonymous to a verse that appears in second canto, right? The Akama Sarva Kamovi, Moksha Kamodad, spoken by Sukadeva Goswami, that whether your material desires or not, you approach Krishna. Narad Muni is saying the same thing. So Srila Prabhupada explains that Narad Muni is not trying to distract Dhruva, right? So he's not trying to fool him into executing devotional service. Like sometimes if people are too much invested in a solution and a person comes and says that I have this problem, like there is this it's a humorous example of Tripurari Maharaj, right? He was distributing books and then a person says that I'm worried about the situation of water purification plants or something like that in the US. And Tripurari Maharaj gives him a Bhagavad Gita and says, this book has the answer to that problem. You read it. And Prabhupada actually says that it's okay. It does have the problem. It does have the solution. Not maybe immediate solution. But in this proportion Prabhupada is mentioning, Narad Muni is not misleading Dhruva. He's not tricking him into performing bhakti. Because from a tattva perspective, bhakti will give you your material desires. If you execute bhakti with material desires, bhakti will fulfill your material desires. Dhruva is an example of that. So whatever Narad Muni is saying is completely based on the scriptures. Okay, let's go to next verse. Verse 42. Tattagaccha bhadram te yamunaya statam suchi punyam madhuvanam yatra sanidhyam nityodhari. My dear boy, I therefore wish all good fortune for you. You should go to the bank of the Yamuna, where there is a virtuous forest named Madhuvan, and there be purified. Just by going there, one draws nearer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who always lives there. So, in any endeavor, Desha Vichar. So, Desh Vichar means what is the suitable place to do it is an important prerequisite. Like if you want to go for your studies, where should I go for my studies? If you want to become an engineer, you go to a particular college. If you want to become an artist, you go to a different college. Deshvichar, right? You're trying to set up a factory, which is the best place to set up the factory. Similarly, Dhruva is embarking on important endeavor. So Deshvichar, Narad Muni is saying that first pick a suitable place for you to go there. Now, Vraj Mandal, Navadvip Dham, Puri Dham, these places are considered very, very potent because the Lord performed his pastimes there and the devotees are congregating over there. And of all these places, Vraj Mandal is the foremost. So Narad Muni is recommending Dhruva to go to Vraj Mandal. There's a it's more of a Puranic pastime that Prayag Kshetra was crowned by Brahma as the king of the Dhamas, all the holy places, the Tirtha, the king of the Tirthas. So when Prayag Kshetra was crowned like that, then all the other Tirthas, they were circumambulating. The personification of the Tirthas, they were circumambulating him out of respect. But then he noticed that Vrajdham was not there. So then he goes to Brahma and complains that all the other Tirthas were there, with the exception of Vraj. So Brahma said, you may be the foremost in the material world, but Vrajdham is spiritual. So you may be the king of the Tirthas, but Vrajdham is eternally supreme. So you go to Vrajdham and offer your respects to him. So then Prayag understands the position of Vraja and goes to offer respect. So Narad here is addressing Dhruva as Tat. So Tat is very intense affection. So my dear sons, that we go to Yamuna River. So where in the Yamuna River? Because Yamuna goes all the way from Yamunotri to Prayag. He says that on the banks of the Yamuna there is Madhuvan. So there are, as we know, there are 12 forests in Vraja, and collectively they are known as Vrajdham. So Madhuvan is where current day Mathura is. It's on the western shore of Yamuna. Prabhupada writes about the 12 forests in the purport. So there are 7 and 5 on the western and the eastern. Madhuvan is where current day Mathura is. So Dhruva makes say that, why are you sending me to Madhuvan? So he says that this place is Suchi Punya. It is pure and it is prophylactic. So pure means that it is pure in itself, and prophylactic means that it is capable of purifying those who come there. And then the most distinguishing characteristic of this is Nityada Hare. So Lord Hari is eternally living over there. So when the suffix da is added, it refers to time. So Nitya means eternally, and da means all, for all times. So it's basically repetition for emphasis. So Nityada means that the Lord is living there all the time for all of eternity. So one question may be asked over here is that this is the first mantra and Satyug over there. Krishna does not appear until the 7th mantra in the Dwapar Yuga. So why is Narad saying that go to Madhuvan and Krishna is living over there? And Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that places like Vrindavan are not affected by the destruction of the universe. So the glories of Vrindavan are eternal. That during the first mantra, the glories of Vrindavan from the previous day of Brahma are carrying on. Because when Brahma's day ends, then the earth planet is destroyed. But Vrindavan is not destroyed. Right? Puri Dham is not destroyed. Navadvip Dham is not destroyed. So they continue to carry the glories. So even though Krishna would appear millions and millions of years later on, but the glories from his previous pastimes are are there. So that is why now they're saying Nityada, that Krishna is residing eternally over there. It's not that he just comes there during the 7th mantra, Dwapar Yoga, and that's it. Nityada. He is eternally residing, sometimes in a manifest, sometimes in a unmanifest state. Srila Prabhupada explains this point, which he does very often in the context of dhams, that the place is actually potent because of the presence of devotees. So the devotees are attracted by the pastimes of the Lord, and their presence is what purifies the dham. Right? It's like the benediction given by Bhagirath to Ganga. When Ganga said that I'll come down, Bhagirath asked Ganga to come down. She said, I'll come down, but all the sinners will take bath in me and they will deposit all the sins, and then I will get contaminated. And then he said, the devotees will take bath in you and they will purify you. So the point that is made is that while Ganga has intrinsic purificatory qualities, but because of the presence of the devotees in Ganga, she is able to sustain this. Similarly for the holy dham. So okay, I should have actually paused before this verse, because there are some more points. I'll make them next time. There's good commentary on this. I'll I'll pick up on this verse and speak upon it next time, but I'll pause over here just because we're running out of time and see if there is any discussion. Okay, if not, we'll end here. And like I said, I'll finish the thought on this verse Wednesday. Yeah. So we'll end over here. Vanchakalpatarubhayascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta koti Vaishnavrind ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.